This is Puck Yeah, New Zealand's hockey podcast with hosts Logan Swinkles and Joe Jury, bringing you the best stories and interviews from Down Under.
Hey guys, welcome back to Puck Yeah for another edition of Hockey Down Under. Of course, I'm your host Logan Swinkles. Joining me as always is my co-host Joe Jury, all the way in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm still based in Sydney, Australia for the time being. Joe, buddy, what is on the show this week?
This week, Logan, we've got reaction to the double IIHF stripping Belarus of their World Championships.
Ooh.
We also head to Nova Scotia for our interview of the week and the Queenstown Cup, streaming, and heaps more.
Oh, that's right. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We'd love to have you here. You can follow the podcast, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, we're on YouTube. That's why we got all the cameras rolling. Hit us up on Instagram and Facebook as well at PuckYeahNZ. But I want to start off the podcast so far today. I'm going to crack open this beer. You're going to hear it. It's going to sound beautiful. Oh, that's a crispy.
Oh, God, that looks good.
Crispy Puck Yeah
Oh,
Pilsner.
that looks good.
This is for Tim and Sid in Canada. They are guys, the show itself and the guys, huge inspirations of mine. And then the news has come out recently that Sid is leaving the show after they've just been this dynamic duo for a long, long time. So for the rest of the podcast, I'm going to be sipping on that beer. Oh, it's so good because it's hot in Australia right now. We're in a heat wave.
They're not dead.
Yeah,
he's not dead. He's just leaving the show. He's just leaving the show.
Yeah, he's not dead. I'm not dead. Let's get into it. IIHF stripping the worlds away from Belarus. And of course, a lot of controversy around this, Joe. We had their reason and then the real reason. Basically, the IIHF put it down to safety issues and I guess probably a blanket reason being COVID-19. But there's a lot more going on there when you sort of look under the surface. A lot of unrest, I would say, going on in Belarus with the re-election of their president, Alexander Lukashenko, or as many call him out as online, a dictator. I like what they said, dictator. I love that. I'm going to keep
just
that.
emphasize the dick part on that.
Right? I'll say so. So my Joe, my question is should the IIHF have acted sooner?
Well, their bullshit claim that it's all COVID, blah blah blah. This guy, the president of Belarus, he's an a-hole. So it's kind of like man up and do it for the right reasons rather than just this bunch of bullshit which they're talking about. But it's not like these. I mean, we've seen it so many times. These federations just so slow moving and safe with everything they do. So it's not a surprise that it's taken this long. But yeah, it should have, to put it under the veil of COVID and pretend that you're kind of doing it and everyone's safety and for the right reasons, but not actually the right reasons, is classic big IOC.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. Obviously, just trying to appease the big money where they can. Of course, they were getting pressure from sponsors as well, from the likes of Skoda. Fans have been protesting pretty hard on their social media. I've seen, especially on their Instagram, there was a great comment from Anna, who's a Belarusian. She says she's a lifestyle Instagrammer, but I won't call her an influencer because she only had like 600 followers. So, I mean...
What? How can you call yourself a lifestyle Instagrammer if you've only... I've got 600 followers.
Yeah.
And right? I'm definitely not an influencer. So
well, maybe you need to be. Maybe you need to be, Joe. But her comment was great. She said, "Your reputation is under a big question. It is sad to see that people like you benefit from European rule of law and safety and then go and hug dictators." By the way, the hug dictators comment was a question that's come up, or a statement that's come up a lot from fans towards the IIHF. "This will not be forgotten," she says. "So we are not saying thank you for this decision. We think you should be thankful to society that helped make you do it." So I think that's pretty poignant there. And of course, friend of the show, BHL Marku, on Facebook as well, basically called IIHF President Rene Russell a puppet and needs to be removed. What do you make of that?
He doesn't get a good he doesn't have a very good reputation, old Rene Russell. Probably the only good thing about him is his sweet mustache. But even that doesn't really save him. He's like the relationship he's had with the NHL and the Players Association has never been any good, and it's always seemed like he's just using them for to make money for the IOC and that hugely corrupt organization. So yeah, Marku's got a good point on that, and Marku's a great man. I think he's actually in this building right now, and he may be smiling softly and quietly to himself, knowing that I've just mentioned him and we've mentioned him on the podcast.
His spidey senses are tingling. But aside from the IIHF, of course, we are also a couple of weeks into the NHL season. It's a much different look this year with the realigned divisions, obviously, to create a unique bubble situation. To be honest, it's the most I've been excited for hockey in years. I didn't get involved in fantasy hockey this year. One, because I have a kid now, and I normally go real deep into fantasy, and I just haven't had the time. And I did fantasy NFL, and COVID really screwed me over. So I'm not prepared to let that happen to me in fantasy hockey as well. But I'll get to you first, Joe. What are some of your impressions and observations so far from these first couple of weeks of the NHL?
I mean, fuck, it's just good to have hockey back, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
The bubble was a weird thing, and it was kind of surreal. There were so many games at some weird times, and then all of a sudden it was just over. To have it kind of back where it's like the proper season, even though it's shortened, but to have it back is just really good. It's kind of a bit weird still getting used to with the no crowds, except if you're in the weird states like Texas and Florida where they're allowed to have a certain amount of people, which is really weird when you're watching it and you're like, hang on, those are people. Why are there people in there?
That's not a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of like it how they've adapted things and they've started putting like just to make money, I guess, like logos on the glass and a bit more like augmented reality logos on the ice and everything like that. It's kind of cool. It's just pushing the presentation forward a little bit more. I'm guessing they can't have those logos on the glass when the crowd comes back because they'll complain. One thing that I thought was weird that some stadiums still have the netting up around the back of the glass, around the back of the goal, which is you're like, why do you have that if there's no crowd? So you might as well just take it down. But I like the divisions, and I know you're a big fan of the North division, as some people are calling it. But it's really cool, and I like the schedule, how you go and play the same team 3 times as like a mini baseball kind of schedule playoff series, and the hatred is just kind of building up from that, which is really good.
Yeah, we're gonna see some awesome rivalries just build, and like it's just gonna ignite, especially come closer to the end of the season and then going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Some of the things I've noticed, obviously I'm a massive Punishing Leafs fan. Been really surprised by Dustin Hall. I liked what I had seen of him previously, but somehow he's grown his hair long, and now he's just this amazing player. He's really surprised me. And then
have you watched Succession, the TV show Succession?
No, I haven't.
Anybody who has watched Succession, Cousin Greg, Dustin Hall is a ringer for Cousin Greg. So
okay,
a little bit of research for people out there.
That's a little bit of research for me too. I'm going to have to look that up. And then on the other end of things, of course, I've noted PK Subban, the struggles seem to continue in New Jersey. I know it's just not seeming to find the right home for him. And testament to this is he's now getting chirped comfortably by dudes that only have like 22 games in the NHL under their belt. This is amazing tough. If you've seen it. Yeah, Trent Frederic from the Boston Bruins. I'll read out the exchange, and I want to know what you think of this, Joe. So Subban gets tied up with him. He says, I'm going to fucking beat the living shit out of you. Frederic says, you want it? Subban, when I'm ready. So Frederick goes, let's go when you're ready. Subin says again, when I'm ready. And then Frederick goes, all right, and do another workout video. Post another fucking workout video, you fucking loser. How amazing is that?
I mean, it's a really good chirp by Trent Frederick. A little bit cheeky, like being a kid that's only played 20 games in the league. Like PK's a prominent player and deserves a bit of respect, I guess. But it's a fucking funny chirp. Like you got to hand that to him. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously PK is definitely not loved in Boston. Harking back all the way to his days with the Montreal Canadiens. So I'd love to see more of that. I bet he's a freaking hero now in Boston after that. That was amazing.
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah. So we touched on it before, the NHL divisions. You got the 4 divisions. But what I really want to know is, should the NHL continue these divisions beyond the season? What do you reckon?
I think every single person in Canada is going to be wanting it to continue. Like, all you hear now is just, it's fucking crazy. Like, hockey Twitter in Canada was crazy enough. And now you go and put it so you're only playing the Canadian teams every game, and everyone in Vancouver and Winnipeg hates all the Kachucks, and the Kachucks are like the most hated people in Canada, and Connor McDavid's playing every day against Canadian teams. It's really, really, really good from that perspective. And why do we have to have geographical based divisions? Like, why not have this the way it's split up now? It makes more sense. The baseball MLB, their divisions are split all across the entire country, I guess, because they were 2 leagues coming together. But now if they're going to roll the schedule of you playing in the same city like 3 times, then do you actually need to have geographic-based ones? I think it's at least give it a go for a few years, and if it doesn't work, change it back. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably down to the travel, but I mean, with the schedule makers, if they just continued on with this baseball-style schedule where you play in the same kind of area, you know, for like 2 to 3 days and then move on, I mean, I don't see why that couldn't work, but let us know what you guys think. Hit us up on our Facebook and Instagram. Do you guys think the NZIHL, should the NHL continue these divisions beyond this season? But before we get into our interview of the week, I want to get into some of the reaction from our return, Joe, our hot and fiery and steamy return back into the podcast world. Seems like it's been pretty good.
It was a hell of a way back in with that massive news that I went to the rink, and seemed like every single person was like, have you seen this news on Puck here that they're adding another NZIHL team? I was like, well, yeah, I was kind of in the podcast, but it's okay. And yeah, it's just people are buzzing. They're pretty stoked that we're back and just helping put the spotlight on local hockey. And I know a lot of people have now reached out wanting to do interviews and be part of it and help us make it even bigger than what it is at the moment, so we're really stoked.
Yeah, honestly,
it warms the heart. It warms the heart of all the hard work that you do,
and you
slaving away in Sydney, to know that people actually enjoy what we're doing and want to be a part of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's been great to hear from, you know, players that we love and respect, you know, being so excited, wanting to come back on the show, coming up with ideas for the show and like being like, hey, I really want to come on and talk about this. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we've got some awesome guests to come up later on in the year. But for anyone that listens and you've got a question about ice hockey in New Zealand, wherever you are in the world, send it in to us. We'll do our best to get answers for you. That's what we're here for. Also, you know, we're all about promoting the game, but we also want to hold those in charge accountable, because we want this game to be the best it possibly can be for players and fans alike. Because you know, we're all in this together. It's a small community, but you know, we're all diehard hockey fans here. So here we are. We're opening the invitation for you guys. If you're in a hockey community in New Zealand and you feel like we should feature you, we've been getting this a little bit as well lately with the Queenstown Cup. There's the Kiwi Masters coming up in Dunedin. There's tournaments happening in Lake Tekapo. The Hot Ice Tournament, which sounds freaking amazing. I wish we could go down there for that. I'm really hoping we can figure something out there. So if you have a tournament or anything going on in the world of New Zealand hockey and you want us to, you want us to talk about it, you want us to promote it, we would love to hear from you. But before we do that, we've got a really special guest, Joe. We're going all the way to Nova Scotia.
It's a hell of a long way to go. Hell of a long way to go. You had a great chat with a man named Dustin Hall, he toured New Zealand in the Canadian Moose, who I actually played against a long time before he came here. They're like a Canadian, kind of like an invitational side. Came and spread the word of hockey to the outreaches, and you caught up with them.
Yeah, sit back, guys. You're going to enjoy this. This is a really interesting look back on what New Zealand's rinks were like 16 years ago. He came to New Zealand back in 2005 with the Canadian Moose, which is actually the same time as the British Lions. So sit back and enjoy this, and we'll be back afterwards. All right, joining Puck Here podcast all the way from Nova Scotia in Canada, we have Dustin Hall, who's all decked out in his Nomad Hockey clothing. You've probably no doubt seen them on Instagram. They've got some really awesome threads all about their ODR hockey culture. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great, Logan. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad, man. I know this has been kind of something that's been in the works for a while. Dustin is, I guess, one of the OG supporters of the podcast, so we really appreciate that. But the main reason, why we wanted to get you on is you played in New Zealand all the way back in 2005 with the Canadian Moose World Traveling Hockey Club, which was founded way back in 1989. So it's been going around for a while. How did you get involved with that team?
It's pretty much as random as you can get. I was in university and I was looking at doing teachers college, and there was an ad for teachers college in Dunedin, New Zealand, and I was like, oh, that seems pretty wicked. I just wish you could go check it out. And I was talking to my friend about it, and she was like, my uncle runs this hockey team called the Canadian Moose, and they go down to New Zealand every year. And she's like, I know you love hockey and you play hockey, and she's like, why don't you send him a message and see if you can get on the team? And I was like, do you have to be any good for this thing? Because I'm okay, but I'm no great talent. And sure enough, she sent me his email address, and I got in contact with him. And next thing you knew, I was signed up for the Canadian Moose, and I was going to go down to New Zealand to play. And I thought, while I'm down there, I'll check out the teachers college in Dunedin while we have a free day. And long story short, before we ever got to New Zealand, I had changed my mind, decided not to go to teachers college. So it was a bit of a moot point, but yeah, it got me a great trip to New Zealand out of it, and hell of an adventure.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course, 2005, that's a long time ago, 15, 16 years now. Things have changed a lot. What were what rinks did you get to play at when you were in New Zealand?
I don't remember all the rinks. We played in Auckland, Christchurch, and Queenstown. I remember Queenstown best. I remember that it was still open, and there was no glass, and there was mesh, and we had a bunch of guys get injured because they went to brace for a hit. And, normally you brace for a hit against the glass, but when there's no glass, you're not bracing anything. So you just slam your ribs right into the boards, and we had some guys with some fractured ribs and stuff like that out of that. But yeah, also the fan experience down there in Queenstown was phenomenal. It was packed, and I don't know if the low roof, low ceiling kind of amplified that atmosphere, but it was just fantastic. It was probably some of the best hockey atmosphere I've ever played in. And yeah, I remember Christchurch had the huge mural painted on the wall, all around, mountain scenes and stuff like that. And I think they had mesh through most of the sides, but I think the end was still glass at the time. And it was weird. Just you went to bank a puck off the glass and you put it out of play, and it was kind of cool because it was different. We'd never played anything like that before. Yeah, it was really, really different experience. And then at Christchurch, we also had, I don't know if it's still like this in Christchurch, but our dressing room was upstairs. So, you know, when you're exhausted after like a hard skate, walking up those stairs to the dressing room was like extra hard. It was also fun. Like we had a pretty good crowd in Christchurch, if I remember correctly as well. And then Auckland, where we started our trip, I can't remember. I think it was, no, I don't want to even guess which rink it was, because I can picture it in my mind, but the name of it didn't mean much to me at the time, because it was just a rink in Auckland. Again, same, we had that mesh, and it was just different. It was just like, oh, that's how it's going to be down here. We got to prepare for that. But you couldn't get it in your head that, you know, there's no glass in certain areas. It's habit. You try to do things. You've done things a certain way. I was in my early 20s at the time, and I started hockey when I was like 5. So since I was 5 years old, you know, back in the day, you were told like, you're on your ass off the glass, and you know, there's no glass to put it off of. So it was pretty good. The ice was pretty good though. Like I don't remember thinking that we had bad ice. Maybe it wasn't like perfect ice or anything like that, but it was pretty good to my recollection.
Yeah, see, that's such an awesome program. I've only been to one Australia rink while I've been here, which is the Macquarie rink where the Sydney Bears and Sydney Ice Dogs play out of. But it is still very similar to that kind of experience where they don't have the glass. They have netting. They have it up during the public skates. Of course, anyone that knows is basically any of those kind of rinks, the public skate comes first over hockey. Hockey doesn't make money for the rinks, but you really get that sense there. It's like hockey is in and out, get it in and out really quick so we can get the public skate back on and make money. But when they bring down the netting, and then, you know, sometimes in the IIHL, they hit really hard, and I've definitely seen a few rib ticklers. The commentary box is up there in one of the corners, and I saw a few, and I'm surprised I didn't swear on the mic, because I was like, damn, some of that shit must have hurt. Now I know with Queenstown, that's awesome. You see, if you go there now, they're really proud of their history. Ted and Dan Graham do an amazing job of that rink, and you know they've got a lot of hardworking people amongst that team too. They have photos around the rink that show the history. You see that sort of open air vibe, which is what you would have experienced. I never got down to Queenstown during that time, unfortunately. I was still, like, when you were traveling 2005, I would have been in university in Hamilton, poor student. I didn't have the money to go anywhere. So it's really cool to hear what it was like then versus what it is now. And you obviously still keep tabs on New Zealand hockey. That trip left quite an impression on you. And when you see, say, the Ice Blacks and the Ice Ferns now, or you watch any of the NZIHL games, when you see those teams then to what you see now on the live streams, like, what do you see?
I see like such an increased talent level. Like I think of when I went, I probably could have played. I think it was like the first year of the NZIHL when I was down there, something like that. I probably would have been like a second liner on one of those teams at that time. Now I'd be hard pressed to be a fourth liner. Like that, the skill levels come up so much in the last. Well, obviously it's been 15 years, but. Yeah, like it's amazing. And same with the Ice Blacks. Like, New Zealand has this habit of, punching above their weight class, and in kind of all sports, and hockey's no different. It's like you don't expect much, from a country with a population what you have there, and with the few rinks that are in New Zealand, and yet they come out strong, and they're just improving so much, and having this additional NZIHL team will be pretty awesome too for helping develop players. I think you might, especially if there's no imports, if they do a season this year, you might see like a quote unquote watered down version for a season or two, but that's going to develop so many players that in the next few years, it's going to be just exponentially better.
When you think of traveling and the Canadian, Moose World Traveling Hockey Club, are you still in contact with them? Like, are they still traveling despite, obviously, I guess, the world that we live in right now?
Well, right now, everything's on hold. I've kind of been in and out of contact with them over the years. I was actually speaking with Mark at some point last year, Mark, who runs the team. And he kind of hinted that he was hoping to get another trip back to New Zealand again before too long, which would be fantastic. But yeah, they've done tours elsewhere, like Iceland and Scotland and things like that. And I've actually got a guy that I'm working with, and we're trying to put together some hockey tours as well. Of course, then COVID hit and everything kind of got put on hold. But we were looking kind of at a UK thing to start with. We both kind of got some contacts over there, and I got this dream of like going back with the team to New Zealand one day, because I just loved it there, and just the people were fantastic. And like I remember we played against the Ice Blacks. I think it was in Queenstown, and so in 2005 would have been when the Lions were in New Zealand. And I didn't know until last week. I watched a show on Prime where it was I think it's called All or Nothing, and it was about the All Blacks. And I didn't realize, because I'm not a huge rugby fan, I'll casually watch it, that how big a deal that thing was, that the Lions were visiting New Zealand. That's like once every 12 years, I think it is. And we just happened to be in the country while it was going on. And so after one of our games, we went to our hotel with the Ice Blacks, and we were watching the rugby game with them. And we had just kind of gone to battle with all these guys, and we're just all like very friendly and just like having a blast together afterwards, which I think is a very regular hockey kind of thing, but it was just a different post-game experience than we're used to. And now I kind of understand, after seeing this documentary, just why it was such a big deal. And at the time, there was a rumor that Prince William was going to come drop a puck at our game in Queenstown. I don't know whether it was true or not, but the airport got closed due to fog. So we were told that, Prince William's supposed to be coming tonight, but the airport's closed, so he can't come. And the next day, we were supposed to fly to Australia, and we got fogged. Because of the fog, we got fogged in and had to drive to Christchurch to fly out, where we ended up flying to, just part of our team flew to Brisbane to play the Blue Tongues, which was at the time in the IIHL. And it was the only game on the whole trip that we lost, unfortunately. We were on TV and stuff in Australia at the time, but we were so exhausted. We just had no sleep. But maybe that's part of why I like New Zealand better too. Didn't lose.
Let's talk about Nomad clothing. Of course, you're rocking it all there. It's kind of like who you are. There's a few clothing companies out there online tailored towards hockey fans and hockey culture. But what sets Nomad apart? What's the mission of Nomad?
We're basically just about fans who love the game and will do anything to find their way to it. Our catchphrase is follow the game, and it's a double entendre. So it kind of harkens back to when I went to New Zealand. It's kind of where the idea comes from, to be honest. And it's the idea that hockey can take you anywhere. So like I've followed the game to New Zealand and Australia, and I've been to Austria and Switzerland and places and to watch and play and stuff. And so there's the idea of following it like physically, like you think of how NHL players follow it too. Like Sidney Crosby from just down the street is now in Pittsburgh and has played all over the world. But it's also the idea of follow the game the way that most of us follow it as a fan. Like I'm a Penguins fan, and no matter where I am, I'm keeping track of them and keeping tabs on the Penguins, and as well as international events and stuff like that. So like I follow the game in that way. I follow the game physically, and it's just kind of that idea that hockey is a great sport, and it's not just in your backyard; it's everywhere, and there's opportunities everywhere, and that's kind of the idea behind it. And it's kind of, like I said, grown from traveling to New Zealand and coming back home and sharing those experiences, and just the wonder and awe that people have when they hear these stories from you that didn't even know that New Zealand had hockey. And I'm like, oh yeah, like it's fantastic. It's not like you'd think. It's way better. And I just love hearing that, and I love seeing the game grow. And we're all about that.
Yeah, we get that a lot in New Zealand. When Canadians drop into the live stream, they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know you guys had hockey down there." One thing that really caught my eye when I first discovered Nomad Clothing was your connection with Mikhail Grabovski, I think he just finished playing with the Maple Leafs at the time. Of course, now he's retired. So what's the connection there between Mikhail and Nomad?
Yeah, Grabo's now coaching in Belarus for their only KHL team, and it kind of just came about by chance. So I've only spoken with him one time. He's more of a silent partner, but he was looking at doing a project, and he and his business partner in it wanted to call it Nomad Hockey. And so basically they were like, okay, does anybody own this? And they, quick Google search found that, this guy in Nova Scotia owns Nomad Hockey. Well, let's get in touch with him. He seems like a small company. And instead of just, buying me out, they decided to become partners with me. And so because he is now coaching in the KHL, he's put his other plans on hold. I don't want to get too much into what his other plans are. I don't know how open all that is, but he's got that on hold for now. And once that does come around, hopefully that bolsters the profile of Nomad Hockey, the brand, as well as what he's looking to do. And not sure exactly when that'll be, especially now with COVID having all these travel restrictions. But his plan is travel related, and so we'll see what the future holds for us. But hopefully we got some big things coming in the future, and I'm really looking forward to the day that we can announce that.
Thanks again, Dustin Hall, for taking the time to hang out and chat with us on Puck here, all the way from Nova Scotia. Beautiful part of the world that I really want to get to someday. If you want to catch the rest of that interview, you can do so on our YouTube. That was only like half of it. We really touched on some awesome stuff, some really interesting stuff like climate change, how it's affecting pond hockey, especially in that part of the world. But I mean, that's not something that just affects Nova Scotia. It's affecting everywhere in the world. And of course, we talk about the NHL Outdoor Series, something that we're all excited about.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but before we get into that, we've also got the Queenstown Cup coming up. We're going to be live streaming that on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/puck. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click that frickin' bell and get the game notifications. There's going to be some awesome hockey, some really awesome hockey, I might add, coming out of that tournament. The Traveling Goons are making their way down from Auckland. The Wakatipu Wild are coming back for it. And I think you're going to see a few Stampede players. So that is going to be really exciting. But first, we got to get into a new segment that we're going to have on the podcast every week now, the random non-hockey question of the week. We want to get some debate going here, guys. What is the strangest park you've ever been to, Joe?
Now, when you send this question through, I tried to get all really weird on the answer. Like I was going to say some weird car park, because essentially that's a park. But I would have to say the weirdest one that I ever went to was inside the Vatican. It's like obviously you're going to a whole other country. You go in there and there's just these beautiful gardens that you can just walk around, which was just the weirdest place. Like you go through the Sistine Chapel and everything, and go look at the paintings and everything. But outside of that, it's just this whole beautiful garden area, like a botanical gardens, but inside a whole other country, inside a country. It's really weird. So that would definitely be the one that I'd say is the weirdest park I've ever been to. What about you?
Mine is completely different to that. Under Wikipedia, it's labeled as a historic cemetery and urban park. It's the St. Thomas Rest Park here in Crow's Nest, New South Wales, in the I guess the lower North Shore of Sydney. It's interesting. It is exactly what it says it is. There's a cemetery. It's kind of where the settlers are all buried. People that sort of helped create North Sydney and founded it. But then around that, there's a lot of history. There's like a little walk with placards. It's kind of like a little bit of info, a little bit of a museum going on there as well. But then it's also a dog park. Like I go there with my daughter to so she can see the dogs. And then the last time I went, there were kids playing cricket, like playing backyard cricket in a cemetery. I don't know, can you get much weirder than that?
That is very kind of horror movie like script, like those kids. I know they sell their soul to the devil in the cemetery to become Shane Warne.
That's his
Or something
origin
like that.
story.
Or David
Yeah.
Warner, maybe Marnus Labuschagne, just going through all the most hated Australian cricketers. Yeah, that's fucking weird. That is weird.
So send in your strangest park that you've ever been to. I'd love to see some of the responses we get out of that. Next week, though, on our podcast is going to be, oh man, I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Liam Stewart, Joe, is a guy that we've been trying to get on the show for a long time. We chatted to him a little bit while he was in New Zealand playing with the Sky City Stampede. Of course, now he's in lockdown in the UK, which, man, you got to feel for everyone there. It's a horrible situation that they're in. I mean, like a lot of people around the world, but I think this just really highlights how well New Zealand has it right now. So it's a really fun interview, and here's a little teaser.
But yeah, I think Spyro was one of the most fun times I've had, kind of going back to that era as well. Just such a simple game. And you're like,
Yeah.
like you like I wish I want to, if I get back into it, I'm going to stream like Mario Kart and like all those kind of games as well, which is just like just fun games to be around. I
Yeah,
guess you could
like
say.
I had a lot of fun with those kind of games, and
Yeah.
like I know what you mean. Like games these days are very like heavily complex with their like game mechanics and their like controls and everything. And then you jump back into something like Spyro or Mario or Sonic, and you're just like,
or like
shit.
Crash Bandicoot.
Like, yeah, you're like, was this game this hard when I was a kid? Like I can't remember.
Because like on the boss levels, you'd be like, "Oh, Dad," or "My dad couldn't do it." But who would I ask for? I don't even know who I'd ask for.
I would love to see Rod Stewart playing in Spyro.
Fuck, I know. I'd love to see him just hold a controller.
So Rod Stewart playing video games. What do you reckon about that, Joe?
Oh my god, I'm like the New Zealand Herald would pay so much money to see video footage of Rod Stewart playing video games, and so would I actually. Just like, oh, that would be a sight to behold, I think.
Yeah.
And why doesn't Liam just move back to New Zealand? Get out of the UK and come back here to the utopia that is New Zealand.
Good way of putting it. I mean, it's on the cards. I think it's definitely something he wants to do. I know it's really hard for people to actually, leave the UK. You're hearing stories here in Australia. A lot of Aussies are stuck over there and they can't come back. I think they just cancel so many flights. It sounds like a nightmare over there. So anyone that listens to the show who is over there, we're thinking of you guys. We know it's a shit sandwich of a situation, and we just hope that you're all staying safe and looking out for each other and doing whatever you can to get through this and look after each other and look after your mental health. But that's it for this week's podcast, guys. Make sure that you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hit us up on Instagram and Facebook. Joe and I will be back next week.
See ya.